Hello and welcome to episode 6 of His and Hers Movie Podcast, aka Double HMP. I am one half of your co-host, JP, podcasting out of southwestern Pennsylvania, and joining me tonight, as always, is my esteemed co-host, Carly, aka 317, aka Carly's son.
That was cringe.
Dude, what?
Carly's son. 317.
Yeah, Carly's son. Isn't that what I used to call you?
No, it was much worse. It was Carl Sinclair.
Oh, yeah. And you are also podcasting out of where?
Southwestern Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it is the eve of Valentine's Day, which means this is our official Valentine's Day episode. But I will say this, that there will be an additional Valentine's Day episode next week where we recap our Valentine's Day, because obviously we can't recap a day that didn't happen yet, because today is the 13th, Valentine's Day is the 14th, which we will be watching 2 movies and enjoying some steak, or stack as we call it, and we will recap that next week. So stay tuned for that. We have a full show planned tonight. We have a list of movies that we watched. We have a special bonus review with 2 special guests coming up of My Bloody Valentine later in the show. And then what else do we have?
And lastly, I guess we both have reviews of some Jeremy Gardner flicks. And then we're going to do a joint review on the newest Jeremy Gardner flick.
Yeah, it is called After Midnight, and it is the 3rd effort from Mr. Jeremy Gardner, and it also perfectly fits the Valentine's Day theme, which we didn't necessarily plan.
Mm-hmm.
So our first ever Valentine's Day episode is now afoot. So, what have you been doing this week?
What have I done? Not a whole lot of anything, as per usual. Just been working and kind of hanging out. Worked at the hotel again this past week, which was kind of weird. It's been a while since I've cleaned some hotel rooms. Accidentally took one of the keys home, which is a big sin there, so I had to bring that back the next day. But yeah, pretty much just been working, trying to do better with saving money, which I have been. I haven't used my credit card at all this whole, pay period, I guess you can say, because tomorrow is my payday. So, trying to make more money, save money, so that we have money to go to these conventions during what you would call convention season. So, yeah, I haven't really done anything exciting. Just kind of watching movies, working, same old stuff. How about you?
Yeah, I personally had a semi-okay week. There was a lot of movie watching. I actually did a decent amount of movie watching this past week, which is pretty good because I was a little slacking a little bit lately. I am considering building some new shelves, so I need to get cleaning and moving things around to kind of make space for that. Hoping to do that soon because I got stuff stacked to the dang ceiling almost here. So that's something that I'm looking into. We had one decently nice day earlier this week, and then we had a lot of rain. So and snow, rain, snow, all the craziness. But yeah, I'm very excited to be back to talk another film, to do another episode. But overall, just kind of a basic week, nothing eventful.
So are you going to build the shelves in your room somehow, or are you going to migrate out
to the
into
hallway?
That's when you know it's bad.
Yeah, because I could technically do maybe another shelf in the room, but it eliminates my poster space, which is not what I want. So yeah, probably gonna do it in the hallway. But yeah, so this episode really excited to talk about some films. I've watched a bunch of movies for other shows and different things, so I guess we can get into that.
Indeed we can.
I will go first this week, if you don't mind.
I do not. Go right ahead.
Okay, so I watched a decent amount of stuff. So the first thing I watched in the past week was The Host, which is a Bong Joon. What the heck is his name? He just won an Oscar for Parasite for the Best Picture.
Yeah, I don't know that guy's name.
It is. Ready?
Yeah.
It is.
I'm ready.
Are you ready? It is Bong Joon-ho. Yeah.
Okay.
Bong Joon-ho, which I totally forgot to mention. I watched the Oscars for the first time in like years. Most of the Oscars, which normally I watch like a piece here and there, but it was pretty cool. There was a lot. I actually was invested this year because I had seen a lot of the films that were nominated for, all the different categories, including The Joker and the what was the Quentin Tarantino one called?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 1917. There was a lot of great films this year that were non-horror that I was interested in and that I saw. So that was pretty cool. Big ups to Bong Joon-ho for winning the Oscar, the first ever foreign language Best Picture winner, which is pretty cool. So, yeah, I watched The Host, which was one of his films from the 2000s. It was 2006, I believe. It is basically a giant monster movie, almost similar to like that of a Sci-Fi Channel original, but done with much more heart and grace. So that movie is actually pretty good. It was a featured review on our Bong Joon-ho Director Spotlight over on 22 Shots, so check that out if you haven't. But yeah, that was a really good movie. Then I got back on the 1985 kick with the classic 1985 film Dario Argento's Phenomena, which is definitely one of my favorite Argento films. It's just very likable. You got Donald Pleasance. You have Jennifer Connelly. Yeah, I was trying to think of her name. Jennifer Connelly. You have what's Argento? The other what's her name?
I honestly don't know anyone else's name in that movie.
I don't know anything right now.
Hold on.
I'm looking it up. Dario Nicolodi.
Yeah.
Jesus, I'm an idiot. And also, it's a little bit different of an Argento film. Follows a young girl who has an ability to communicate with insects, and she's in a Swiss boarding school when she is trying to solve a string of murders. It's like a tiny bit giallo, not that much, even though it has like some of the mystery giallo-esque elements. And the third act gets really weird and just out there, and it has this supernatural flair to it, which Dario hadn't been doing a ton since Suspiria. He's more stuck to like the giallos and the murder films. But yeah, this one has a touch of supernatural, which I really like. I was actually tempted to watch the version Creepers, which I hear is a little bit different. That's the US version that came out. The music's really good. I really like the setting. It's very beautiful visually. The monkey's cool. Just a very good movie. Definitely one of my favorite Argento films. So yeah, I watched Phenomena. Of course, My Bloody Valentine, which we will get to in a little bit. Another film that I watched for the 22 Shots Patreon was Dante's Inferno, 1911. This is a silent film featuring Dante and his journey through the circles of hell. So if you remember the house that Jack built?
Yeah.
Kind of a little similar to that in terms of like just the references to the, what do they call that? The
7 Floors of Hell?
No, it's the something comedy.
I don't know.
You know nothing. You're not a help.
You're just mad that you know nothing and that I can't help you with knowing things.
Yeah, I forget what it's called, but it's called like the something comedy. It's like another name for it. But yeah, it's very kind of honestly a little surprised at the amount they got away with back in 1911.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. Decent movie. I don't really know how to rate like films from that era because it's not something I would rewatch really, but you know, for the time it was pretty good. Then I watched Wes Craven's The Hills Have Eyes Part 2, which I recently got the Arrow, which I paid for, which is crazy because it's really expensive. And The Hills Have Eyes Part 2 is what I often considered one of Wes Craven's worst films. I no longer consider it among the worst films. Definitely not among the best films or even the good films. But it's actually pretty enjoyable. It is a direct sequel to The Hills Have Eyes. We have the main brother character returning, as well as Ruby from the original Hills Have Eyes. I think the same actor for the brothers back, but I don't know if Ruby is played by the same actress. I don't think so. We also have Michael Berryman returning. This time it's a group of bike racers, like motocross racers, who venture out to the very same desert where the first incident happened. And the Hills Have Eyes mutant family clan has returned, but this time with a new, stronger member. And it's kind of like a slasher film almost. I said that it's like Wes Craven's Friday the 13th ripoff in a way. I think that's a pretty good description. I actually ended up really enjoying it this time. The transfer is much better than the Kino version that came out years ago. But it just was, I don't know. I just had a lot more fun this time. Then I watched Memories of a Murder, which is the second Bong Joon-ho film that I watched. This is a very good movie. It's a like thriller mystery police procedural type thing, based on some actual murders of I guess it'd be in South Korea during the 90s, I want to say. Interesting, very well shot movie, very good. We go into full discussion over on 22 Shots, so check that out. Probably the one we like the most. And then Mother, also from Bong Joon-ho. And this one was very good as well. Sort of another almost like mystery that has a really good reveal. Then I finally did get to Amityville: A New Generation, and that one was not as good as the other two, part 4 and 5 or 6 or however they split them up. It's not as good as It's About Time and The Evil Escapes. It's weird. It almost reminded me of like a Hellraiser film or something in a weird way.
Yeah.
Just the like aesthetic and it's like dealing with this art and stuff like that. It's like the Hellraiser 3 of the Amityville films.
Yeah, I really didn't care for it.
I liked it. There's some like decent, effects and stuff in it. It's not nearly as bad as people probably say, but nothing super special either. Then I watched a film called We, which is I watched the unrated director's cut. It's from the Netherlands. It's an Artsploitation Films release, which I haven't reviewed one of their films in a long time. It's described as a film that is reminiscent of films of Harmony Korine, Larry Clark, and Lars von Trier, which is, such a great trio of filmmakers. I'm a huge fan of Larry Clark films. I like the 1 or 2 films I've seen from Lars von Trier, and I also like Harmony Korine. It is a film that follows 8 teens in the Netherlands who are basically, just living their best life, just having sex and drinking and committing crimes and things like that. They eventually start this sort of like prostitution ring thing. It's told in flashbacks from a narration, and it's told in chapters too. So you have each, I believe 4 of the characters get their own chapter, and you see the film unfold from their point of view, and then you see certain things you don't know what happened, and then when you follow the next chapter with the it'll be like chapter 2, Ruth. You'll see it from a little bit more of her point of view, and you'll get more stuff revealed. Like one of the characters dies, and you're like, you don't know how they died, and then when you get to the 3rd chapter, you see how they died, and it's kind of told in that way. I'm not sure if it 100% works for this film. It's almost like that sort of Tarantino-esque out of sequence storytelling, but I will say that the film is the unrated version, particularly. There's real penetration and oral sex in sort of an orgy scene. I'm pretty sure that some of the actors are definitely actually performing it, but they might have had some stunt doubles. I don't know. It's very gratuitous. There's tons of nudity. They literally play a game where they blindfold a character and then stick things in their vagina, including their own penises, and they have to guess what the item or who the penis belongs to. Which is, a classic game. I mean, everybody's played that.
Yeah.
And they get into some trouble, and it's a very Larry. It is kind of a good description. It definitely has the Larry Clark-esque vibe to it. I don't think that it's done in the same way, but just the sleaze factor and what these characters are doing, I don't think it feels as realistic. One of the characters is like very rich. He lives in this like super nice house, and that almost makes it feel like a little unrealistic to me. But overall, I really enjoyed that film. It was quite the experience. Then I ventured back to 1985 with a film called DEFCON 4, and that film is a post-apocalyptic Canadian film that follows a group of astronauts that are in a space station when World War III happens. They spend a couple of months up in space, eventually venture back to Earth, and it's overtaken by, bad people, and they, get mixed up with this group and stuff. Honestly, it started off great, really creepy and cool. The poster's awesome, but it just by the going into the 3rd act, I was kind of done with it and just kind of wanted it to wrap up quickly because just wasn't interested in it anymore. Kind of pulls the whole like sci-fi action, or not even sci-fi, more like action aspect, and I was just kind of done. But yeah, those were the films I watched. I might throw in, if I finish the film before I send this episode to Jason, I might throw in a little review of another film that I'm in the middle of but had to stop because of recording's sake, so that might be in here too. If not, I will get to it next week. It is Takashi Miike's First Love. It's his newest film. So I know I kind of killed it, kind of went balls to the wall on this one. What did you watch?
All right, buddy. Well, thank you for making me feel like trash. No, I watched like a decent amount of stuff. Pretty much everything I've been watching lately has been for like podcast sake, it seems like. But yeah, first up, I watched Friday the 13th, Part 5. A new beginning. An 85 move, if you will. What did I say? That one's a lot of fun. That's one that I didn't really grow up watching that one a whole lot. It was actually one I kind of forgot about, and then I rewatched it later on in life and was like, oh, this is like actually a good movie, and I didn't really rewatch it a ton. I never realized like every single person gets slaughtered in that movie, and it's just fun time. It's great. It's like all the side characters, all the people at the camp or whatever you call that. Just everyone dies in it. It's kind of funny, but yeah, I think that one's a lot of fun. I think it's got some of the funnest characters, and it's become one of my favorites. Then after that, I actually watched Fright Night, another 85 movie. Pretty much just been rewatching some of the top tier 85 movies. Fright Night, that's one that's it's grown on me. I do like it. I think sometimes it's a little bit too quirky, I guess, for my liking, but I enjoy it. It's got its like funny moments, and I wouldn't say it doesn't really scare me or anything like that, but it's a fun little horror comedy vampire film that has definitely grown on me upon rewatches. Then after that, I rewatched 10 Cloverfield Lane. Did that for my little YouTube series I do where I watch my entire collection. I really dig that one. I still have problems with the final act. I just think it's kind of stupid and feels like a separate movie in a way, and just gets a little bit, over the top. But, John Goodman's great in the film. The suspense in the movie is fantastic. Even on rewatch, it's still really, really good. And there's some shocking moments and just great performances all around. And just the setting, I really dig as well, the whole bunker thing. So overall, really dig that one. Then we travel on back to 85, and you have Demons. This is one that I watched. We actually watched that in a group setting at our friend Matt's house a while back, and I liked it, but watching it in the group setting, it's like I never fully am paying attention to a movie, so wanted to give that one a rewatch as well, and I dig that one. It's got some gross out effects in it, and which obviously that's gross, but I appreciate them. I think they're done really well. It's got some creepy moments, and it's set in a movie theater, which I'm always a big fan of that setting, so can't go wrong with that. Then after that, I actually checked out The Battery, which I will get into a little bit later. Then after that, watched Christine. Actually watched it on VHS, because that's the only format I have it on, or, only way of viewing it that I have. I don't have it on Blu-ray or DVD, and I need to change that because I actually really enjoy Christine. It's one of those ones where I rewatch it and realize just how much I really love the movie, even though I don't go back to it a whole lot. But
I have it on 4K.
I did not ask you. It was actually they had it on Blu-ray at that Cash and Culture place for the longest time, and I always thought about picking it up. I should have just grabbed it. I'm so weird about double dipping.
Would you like my Blu-ray?
Yes, I would. Add that to my awesome
Well,
box
I would
for my
have
birthday.
gave it to you, but instead you said you didn't ask me, so I think I will throw it in the trash.
You know what? I am about to leave this podcast, and you're going to eat a pork chop tomorrow, not a stack.
Dude, you're eating the pork chop. You still...
I'm not eating pork chops.
Dude,
I'm not.
Okay, you'll eat a pork steak then.
I don't want that either, dude. I just want steak.
You're
Plain
not
steak.
getting a steak.
I'm getting a steak. I've been good. You have not been so good. Alright?
We'll see.
Yeah, that's right. Know your rule. Okay, but, yeah, Christine, I would like that on Blu-ray if you could ever forgive me. But, yeah, it's a Carpenter film that I feel like, it's one of his better films, and it's one that's not as wildly talked about as, say, like Halloween, The Thing, or The Fog. And it's one of those ones that I really, really dig. So that was a fun little rewatch. Great score, great soundtrack as well with, Christine and the music and all that. And then after that, I checked out The Slayer for the first time. That one was interesting. I'm going to be talking about that on a podcast soon, so I don't want to get too much into that. But it was an interesting one. I'll give it that. Then I checked out MFA from, I believe that came out in 2017 for the first time. That's a pretty solid one as well. It was, that's another one I don't want to get too much into, but it was definitely up my alley. Kind of one of those girl power movies, but done the right way, unlike, Black Christmas or something that's too shoved. It is kind of shoved in your face, but it's not to the point of cringe. So, I'll get for that.
That's arguable.
There are some moments. There were a few moments.
I didn't love MFA. I think it's decent, but I did think that it was a little too much. Every man in this movie is awful.
Yeah, I get. In a way, yeah. Like I said, I don't want to talk too much about it on here, but there was a few moments where I was like, this is a little bit too over the top with just the cringe factor, but for the most part, I was okay with it. I had a good time with it. And then lastly, I just watched this earlier today, actually, another 85 movie rewatch that I remember I liked, but kind of forgot about and wanted to rewatch it, and that is Cat's Eye. That's a good one. Good little anthology movie. I pretty much dig there's only like 3 stories in it, but I think they're all pretty well done for what they are, and they're all pretty, for the most part, kind of basic, but they're just done well, and I really like them. They're well acted, and they build suspense in a good way. So yeah, that is all I have been watching as of late.
Awesome, dude. That was a lot of stuff.
It felt like more than what I've been watching. I'm up to 46 movies for the year, so.
I'm at 50.
Oh, really? I thought you would be like way ahead of me.
I was murdering it for a little bit, but I took I took like a couple weeks where I only watched like 5.
Yeah.
But anyway, that is all the stuff we watched this week, besides 2 films, which we will talk about before we get into our featured review. But for now, let's talk about another film that we watched, but we watched it in a theater, and we would like to welcome in our 2 surprise guest hosts. And joining us now is both halves of the famous Woodsboro Bros podcast. Have you ever heard of the Woodsboro Hall? Because it is extensive.
World famous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew and Austin, the Schroyers.
Mm-hmm.
What's
that
up,
is
guys?
us. Not much. Pretty excited to be on here. I think we're your first guest you've ever had.
You are our first guest
together,
ever.
So, yeah, I mean, good choice, I must say.
Yes.
Which one of you are our first guest, and which one of you is our second guest?
Oh,
I
I was
guess-
here first. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good to have you guys both on. I was hoping that we could get the entire team together, and we have. So this is exciting.
The entire southwestern Pennsylvania podcasting crew.
There you go. Yeah.
That's probably true. Actually, no. I do know of another podcast from Southwest PA. What the heck is their name? It's like 80s horror or something. It's like something. I forget what it is. But I've never really listened to them. But I always saw their flyers when we'd go to the Hollywood Theater, because they would leave their flyers there. But
yeah.
anyway, you guys are joining us tonight for our mini review of My Bloody Valentine 1981, because you two also saw it at the same theater that we did at the Waterfront.
Indeed, we
Oh
did.
yeah.
Yep. So, Carly, what is My Bloody Valentine about?
Well, let us read the old synopsis. A decades-old folk tale surrounding a deranged murderer killing those who celebrate Valentine's Day turns out to be a true to legend. What? Okay, it turns out. Okay, let me just. Okay, basically, something happens, and this Harry Warden dude is, mad, and he comes back for revenge. And then years later, this town's not supposed to celebrate Valentine's Day, but then they're gonna have a party. And then more killings start to show up years later, so they're like, maybe we shouldn't have this party.
Yeah, pretty much. What did the IMDb synopsis fail you?
I think turns out to be true to legend when a group defies the killer's order and people start turning up dead. I don't know, the way it was worded didn't seem to make any sense.
You
So
can't
yeah, it
turn
failed
up
me.
dead. That shit would be redundant.
Yeah.
We all went to the Waterfront. They were doing a special screening of My Bloody Valentine for Valentine's Day week before Valentine's Day, which is weird. Well, I guess they did another Valentine's Day movie this week, which isn't a horror movie, so I guess horror has to take second fiddle.
Yeah,
to it.
we always forget that they don't do just horror movies, I feel
know.
like, because I was like, this is so weird. And yeah, it's kind of family friendly every once in a while too.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that they showed this film. I was like, man, that's like a pretty cool movie to show. And then I realized, like, oh, they showed the cut version. And I was like, yeah, I guess it's not as violent as I remembered. But let's go into the guests and ask them their thoughts on My Bloody Valentine first. So, Andrew, Austin. Andrew alphabetically is before Austin.
Wow, we're learning our ABCs too on this podcast.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the ABCs of in-your-face horror.
Yeah, whatever.
Oh, Lord.
Andrew?
Yeah. So I think, well, actually, yeah, we did review this on our podcast before. We did this last year.
Is it in the Woodsboro Hall? That's the question that everybody's wondering.
Don't think so. No.
No, it is not.
Just missed.
I think it just missed by like a half a point or a point.
Yeah.
How many?
Must suck then.
How much is in the Woodsboro Hall these days?
I would have to pull up. I have a Letterboxd list of shit in there. I don't think I have like everything in there, but it should be pretty up to date. Hold on, let me pull it up.
There's just one or two.
Yeah. One or two our first episode.
Two from our first episode.
As of right now, as my list, 43 movies.
Wow. That's quite the haul.
It is.
Well, we do tend to review movies that we really like, so that's one thing.
Now tell me how many films actually deserve to be in the Woodsboro Hall.
I just said 43, so...
I think the only one that we literally have ever said, oh man, it's like really weird that one made it, was VHS 2.
Mm-hmm.
That was literally our only one.
I do like VHS 2 a lot, so I'm not gonna hate it.
Spider-Man 3 definitely deserves to be in there, so there's no questions about that.
Is Phantoms in there?
Well, you should know.
I mean, it should be, but it's honorary inductee.
Yeah, it's an Andrew's wing. He has his own wing.
He has his own wing.
Yeah, along with My Soul to Take, which got robbed.
He got robbed.
In the final exam.
Take it so serious.
Okay, so what do you think of My Bloody Valentine?
See, now this is one of those early movies that I did watch when, like, my journey into horror, like, I became like a huge horror enthusiast right around like 2013, 14, and right around then was when I did watch My Bloody Valentine, so it was one of those early ones for me. I've got a lot of fond feelings for it. I've never this one has always been one where I watched the remake before I saw the original, which I think you, JP, you've pointed out on your other podcast before, it does kind of affect the way that you view both movies. But I've always really had a appreciation for it. But this time watching it in the theaters, as I'm sure pretty much we all can agree, it definitely enhanced my viewing pleasure of the movie, because I don't know, there was just a completely different experience when it first came on the screen, and just hearing it in surround sound in the theater and just seeing everything on the screen, like the story, it just I don't know, it just had this extra magic to it that it didn't have before for me. So my love for the movie did go up quite a bit for it.
Yeah, that's much like me and Carly often talk about, because we do go see these movies a lot. We did an episode recently where was that our 100th? Or was it 99? Yeah, that was our 99th retro movie we saw in the theater. So, and we have talked many times that there could be a movie that, you like a lot or even love, but when you see it in the theater, it truly does add a next level to it, and you are just engulfed in the movie so much more. And so many movies that we've seen, I've came up higher on after seeing them in the theater. It's a bizarre, even films that I love, like Phantasm. When I saw Phantasm in the theater, it did something magical. I was just so into it, and it just seeing the huge screen and truly being able to take in the whole image of every scene, and the music and the sound is so much more powerful. It really can change your perception of a movie. And I think that it's unfortunate that we don't have an opportunity to see a lot of the stuff that we weren't born for in the theater, but it is nice to get a chance to go back and check out some of these things when they do show them in these retro screenings. And I think that when it comes down to it, if anybody out there has that opportunity to see some classic movies in the theater, definitely do so, because it is definitely an experience.
For sure. That's why I still say to this day that my favorite experience in the theater is The Exorcist, just because it was my first ever classical movie that I ever saw. And as if you've heard my top whatever we did top 50 horrors list, it's third. So yeah, I quite love that movie, and it was great to see it in theater.
That's actually one that me and Carly saw 2 years ago, and it's actually one that I was thinking of when saying seeing a movie that you're just kind of cool on or like can elevate it that much more, because I think me and you both, Carly, like, I've never been the biggest Exorcist fan, but I was so into it during that screening, and I just thought it was so much better. I've always known it was a great movie, but I thought it was so much better and personally more enjoyable than I had ever had with it and you know, had for it before.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So, what about you, Austin? What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, My Bloody Valentine, I mean, there's a reason that it's, you know, considered to be one of the standouts, you know, standalone 80s slashers, well, really 80s slashers in general. You know, it's a classic. You know, I've kind of, I also watched the remake before I watched the original one back in the day, but for me, that rule really doesn't apply where, you know, if I watch something first, I like that one more, because I definitely enjoy this one more than the remake. I have gone kind of on an interesting journey with this movie because, like, at one time, this was, like, easily in my top 10 slashers of all time. And see, in the past couple times I've watched it, I've kind of gone down a little bit. I still love the movie. It's still an awesome slasher movie. It's just, I just don't consider, for me, on that, like, really, really top tier for me anymore. But yeah, getting to see it in theaters was really awesome. Like you guys said, it, you know, it does enhance the experience when you guys when you guys when you get to see like retro films and stuff like that, stuff you've already seen before in theaters. But I wouldn't say it really it really upped my score, but it definitely, you know, was definitely was awesome to see, like I said.
Yeah, man. I think that, you know, to touch on the remake thing a little bit, I've actually seen the remake before the original too. Mm-hmm. And I just remember, I have a very, very vivid memory of that era of movies. And especially since I started watching YouTube around that era, and I'd mention it all the time, but the YouTubers at the time were so hateful and angry. Like, everybody was like just miserable, and like anything that came out they automatically hated, and that was one of them that came out that they hated because it was a remake, and at that time remakes were so prevalent and everybody was just didn't want them. But I remember thinking that the remake was decent, but over the years I think that it's getting more respect now. It's a fun slasher, but this one, the original, is a film that I keep coming up on. It's just one that I enjoy more and more every time I watch it. I think for me, like, the things that work really, really work. The town and the setting is a highlight for me.
Valentine's Bluff.
Valentine's Bluff. It's a highlight for me because the mining camaraderie of these people who work together. How they're all getting off work and they're going in the showers and they're like joking with each other and being goofballs and stuff. If you've ever worked with a group of people that you like, that's how it is. You know, you're just like enjoying each other's company and, you know, enjoying getting off work and just having fun with each other. And it feels like that small town aspect, but in a different way, because normally when you have the small town, it's usually like teenagers you're dealing with. But these are all like grown adults in their 20s or whatever, and they're all like, you know, working together and they party together, and you could just tell that they all know each other have known each other for a long time, and they have this like good camaraderie between all of them. And I really think that works for me a lot. Even like the side characters who don't get much screen time, like the bigger dude with the funny mustache, like he's very likable. The dude with the the goofball who's like snorting stuff through his nose and just making wise ass remarks all the time. Like, he's really
Howard.
fun. I will never know anybody's name. And even like one thing that I pointed out when I reviewed this way back on 22 Shots is even the relationship between Axel and the other guy. You could tell there's a history there with them. Like, they were boys at one time. Like, they were good friends. Like, and they don't even seem to hate each other. They're just like, okay, I guess we got to compete for this girl now. And it's like almost like this level of like sort of respect that's still kind of there, but like still not wanting to back down for, you know, their, you know, personal reasons because they both like this girl or whatever. And I think that that's really neat, that whole relationship aspect. And I think that it's funny because I've seen this film a couple times, but every once in a while, like while watching it, I'll forget. I'll be like, wait a minute. I'll forget, like, oh yeah, that's right, that one's the killer. You know what I mean? Like, I even though I know, I'm just like, I second guess it for a second because I'm just like, wait, was that? And I think it helps because like the remake's done a little bit differently. So like you're for a split second, you're like, wait, which one was the one where the? Okay, yeah. And that's fun. And I think that the mine setting is actually like super cool and creepy, and even like the little party room that they have, and all the, and it totally definitely screams like Canuck too. It's just super Canadian, which is fun. But you guys probably are maybe not as familiar, but you're from this area too. The coal mining towns are very, very similar, you know, in terms of just like the type of I guess camaraderie and stuff like that, and like everybody knows each other and stuff. And like where I like a lot of the different little towns in my specific town, they're called like patches, but I remember like, okay, going over this one and like everybody knows each other there, but because they were once old coal mining towns. And that's kind of cool. So there's just like a little bit of familiarity with like the whole coal mining thing, because that was really big here in Southwest PA. And I think that the one of the strongest aspects besides the mine itself is just the end. I think the end is like super creepy and cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think I said when we reviewed it, it's definitely one of the best horror endings ever. I mean, just very quotable, and of course the song that plays afterwards.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Amazing. But yeah, it's awesome.
Now the final thing I'll say before I pass it on to Carly here is, if you've actually never watched the uncut version, please do yourself a favor and check it out. Scream Factory just put a new Blu-ray out of it. The old Paramount Blu-ray that I have was out of print and really hard to get, but it is a much stronger version because this movie feels very neutered without the uncut footage, because there's really no kills on screen in this version. But I do remember, I don't remember exactly the details, but in my head I remember the other version being like more graphic. So I could be.
It definitely is.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. I was about to say but yeah, I know Carly hasn't seen that version, but Carly, I guarantee you like the movie even more if you see that version.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Carly?
Yeah, My Bloody Valentine. You know, I remember when I was a kid, or when did the remake come out? Like 2009?
2009, I think.
Yeah, I remember there being trailers for that, and my mom being like, oh, that movie, like the original of that movie is really gross and blah, blah, blah. So I was curious and I wanted to see it. And so we watched the original. I got a 2-pack with that in April Fool's Day, and we ended up watching those 2 movies. And yeah, you know, I thought it was okay. I thought it was kind of just silly, and I didn't really care for it too much. And then a lot of years passed, and it was probably just a few years ago I rewatched the movie again, and liked it a little bit better, but I still just, I don't know, something about it I thought was just a little bit too goofy maybe with the characters, and it just wasn't really sitting right for me. But and I forget, I watched the remake as well more recent time, a few years ago, but I honestly don't remember it much at all, besides the fact that I liked it. But that's all I remember, really. I don't remember as far as the plot and everything that goes on in it. So there's not really much comparison there. But yeah, watching it in the theater this time, I actually really, really dug it the most, and it's become probably one of my favorite now standalone slashers, because I just thought it was really good. I don't know why I didn't care for it much before. I think the look of the killer is actually pretty creepy. I like the whole sort of legends and stuff, and the whole small town like legend where it's like bad to have the party on Valentine's Day or else he'll come back and kill everybody. I dig that, and just the look of the small town. I always like the small town kind of deserted setting, and I think they do really well with that. Like JP said, there's a lot of good camaraderie, and everyone just seems like they're good friends. And to me, a good slasher is when everyone seems like they're such good friends, and they're all partying together, and it's so well done that you actually want to be in with that crew. Like, you're kind of jealous and you want to go hang out with them. Like the part where they're having the big party and they're all drinking and just having fun in that small room, it just seems like a great time, and I want to be a part of that party. So this is one of those movies where I couldn't really remember who the killer ends up being at the end, if it's like actually Harry Warden or if it's like one of them or what. So I had fun with that, and yeah, I actually really, really dug this movie this time around, and I'm glad that we did get to see it in theaters, because you pay more attention to a movie usually when you're watching it on the big screen, and it just shows you more than what you would have got out of it just watching it on TV. So overall, I'm a fan now.
Awesome. Yeah. Man, I'll tell you what, the one thing that always grossed me out is the heart in the hot dog water. First of all, a giant tub of hot dogs grosses me out to begin with. But like, throw a heart in there that's all like boiled, and it's like really nasty.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that we all really enjoy the awesomeness of My Bloody Valentine. It's unfortunate that there was never a sequel, or maybe it's fortunate depending on who you are. But originally there was supposed to be a sequel, because it kind of does set up for the end. And I think you could still do it. I think you could still do a sequel to this film and have it, follow right after the original. I think that would be really cool. Probably unlikely, but it would be neat if it actually happened. Let's get into ratings. I will go first. My Bloody Valentine is a film that I consistently like more and more. I think it's one of the best slashers out there. Even when you factor in like franchises, it's probably, somewhere in my top 20 favorite slashers. And I love slashers. Maybe top 25. I'd like a lot of franchise slashers. But, I love slashers. And you could look at the film and be like, oh, well, it's ridiculous. Oh, the town's called Valentine's Bluff. Go figure. Oh, the Valentine's Day dance happened here, and there was a brutal murder. Oh, this town hasn't celebrated Valentine's Day in this long, and it just so happens that there's murders that happen the first time they sell it. It's ridiculous. But I'm a sucker for that stuff, man. When it comes to slashers, I might not want to see that in a serious movie about an exorcism or something like that. But, a slasher film, the cliches and the, gimmicks work for me. They always have. And slasher foods are the comfort food of horror. This is one of the best. I give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess I can go next. Like I said, I really liked this movie, and I think kind of what you just said, I think that's kind of why I never liked it before, because I thought Valentine's Day isn't even a holiday that people really go all out for to begin with, so I always thought the concept was kind of over the top and ridiculous.
It's even more ridiculous when they're like, if you ever have a Valentine's Day dance again.
Like, all right.
Like, that's what set him off, is the Valentine's Day dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But now I really like it. I like how the whole town's all decorated in hearts and just all done up, and everyone's really excited for it. So, no problems there. I think this is a fun movie. It's one that I will probably continue to, rewatch around Valentine's Day every year, and I give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay, so Austin, are we going to go with our quarters on this one?
Yes,
Okay.
of course.
Okay, well, I pretty much echo...
Excuse me. Did you just say, are we going to go with quarters? Did you just ask Austin if you could go with quarters?
He did, yes.
On our show?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we make the rules here.
Well, on our show... Okay, well, I'll give your show ratings, and then I'll give on our show ratings then. So, I pretty much echo everything what JP says. It really did take me till the last watch, watching it, in the theaters and just kind of thinking like, okay, this is like the whole Valentine's bluff thing. And it comes across as like a local urban legend type story. Mm-hmm. And I really love those. I love urban legends. And so, I mean, this just naturally came across as something that would I have an affinity towards things like this. And, just dropping my pretenses of comparing it to a lot of other, awesome movies, it doesn't stand up as much, the acting wouldn't hold up or anything, but to be honest, it's just such an enjoyable movie that, putting all that stuff aside, I think, the good vastly outweighs the bad in this one. It's, for you guys' rating, it's like an 8.5, for our show, I'd go about an 8.75.
All right.
Yeah, so my only real problems I have with this movie are, I think, like, it drags a bit towards the end when they're in the mines, and they're just kind of running around and stuff like that for a while. I think that portion just drags a little bit, and, although I do think some of the side characters are, funny, I think, as a whole, they're kind of weak compared to side characters from like other movies, like Friday the 13th Part 2 or 3 or something like that, where they're really memorable and stuff like that. It's just not really that memorable in this movie. But that's pretty much it. I mean, this has great kills. One of my favorite kills ever is the pickaxe through the eye in this movie with the old crazy dude.
Ralph.
Well, pretty much. Yeah, but, it's, like I said, I love this movie, not as much as I used to, but I still love it. Not quite as good as Madman, but I, too, will give it an 8.75 out of 10.
Awesome. So, the last thing I'll say is there's a scene where the Henry Warden character, is it Harry Warden?
Yes.
Yep.
Jesus.
Okay, good. I've been calling him that the whole show.
I might be a fake fan.
You are.
When Harry Warden is walking down at the mine in the end, and he's bashing the lights with the pickaxe, dude, that's like actually scary.
I was thinking that in my head just now. Like, I wanted to bring that up.
It's so aggressive. And you're just like, damn, this guy's pissed.
And they're like, what's that sound? And you just, I like it how you see him, and it's just creepy that he's actually in there with him, and you're like, I wonder how close he is, and blah, blah, blah. It's scary.
Yeah, I like it. But, thank you, too, for coming on and giving a quick review of My Bloody Valentine 1981 with us. Maybe next year we could convince them to show the remake in 3D, because I didn't get a chance to see it in 3D. And one of my favorite experiences that we did there was me and Carly saw House of Wax in 3D, the 50s version, and it was awesome. So that would be really, really cool. And I'm not gonna brag, but I do have a little bit of pull with them.
Fucking read you like a book, Jesus Christ.
Hey, we don't swear on the show unless JP drops one F-bomb.
Yeah.
Well, I just did, so.
So, really quickly, before you guys get out of here, go ahead and plug anything that you guys got coming up, your podcast, maybe a future episode, Hidden Gems Volume 2 with us, maybe. So, go ahead and have the airways for a moment.
Awesome, our next episode.
Yes, next episode is going to be our top 15 movies of the 2010s. Don't know when the hell we're supposed to record that, but will be coming up soon, probably.
Soon.
Yes.
Did either of you put Bedeviled on your list?
No.
No.
Considering I'll probably never watch that in the next 10 years now. But yeah, that'll be a very interesting episode. Really hard list to make since this past decade was really awesome. Like JP said, we have a show the plan to have these two on our show once again.
I already have my pick.
Yeah, I pretty much
So
have
do
mine
I.
now, too.
I don't.
Is it Phantoms 2?
Yeah, I wish.
Yeah.
Hopefully they come out with a remake soon.
Oh, yes. The only people clamoring for a fucking Phantoms remake is you and Jay and Silent Bob. That's about it.
That's
I would
right.
actually be okay with that movie being remade, just to try to maybe make it good.
Yeah.
True.
So.
I mean, would you want to go to a step down just to be good then?
Oh my.
Alright, go on.
Anyways, also check out me and Carly's podcast, the MVM Horror Podcast. Next up, we are doing the TCM original versus remake. So, that will be interesting.
I love both of those films. I know that you don't like the original that much, but the original is my favorite horror film of all time.
You might want to listen to the next episode.
And honestly, dude, I
Not
might
recorded yet.
say that 2003 might be my favorite remake of all time. It's up
Even
there.
more than Carrie.
Yeah, I mean, I do love Angela Bettis, but
I do love that. I do really like that one.
of course you do. But yeah, that's pretty cool. So, movie versus movie, you got the Chainsaw 03 versus Chainsaw 74. I dig.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, don't forget, I got my 30 Days of Comic Book podcast coming out.
Oh yeah. He's only like 3 years late on his last episode.
Yeah, it lasted 2 episodes.
That's funny. Anything else?
No, that'll do it.
All right. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on. We look forward to coming back on your show. Check out Woodsboro Bros and Movie versus Movie. And we might have you back on again sometime. Thanks for coming on, and peace out, guys.
Okay.
Peace.
Bye.
All right, so we will now get into our feature presentation of the films of Jeremy Gardner. We kind of did this like unintentionally, didn't really plan, kind of just threw it out there type thing, but didn't really specifically set out to do this. You ended up watching his first feature. I ended up watching his second feature, and we both ended up watching his third feature. But Jeremy Gardner is also an actor. He's been in a bunch of stuff, including all 3 of these films that he directed, as well as Joe Begos's Bliss that came out later last year, and he was in The Mind's Eye and a bunch of stuff. He's a very good actor, very talented filmmaker. And the very first film I ever saw with him was a favorite of mine of the year that it was released, as well as a member of the more important hall, the 22 Shots Hall. It is, I believe, the first induction or the second induction. It's like top 1, 2, or 3, I think. And that film is 2012. I believe.
Yes.
The Battery, which I haven't seen in a little while, but I know you watched for the very first time.
I did, yes. And you, among, I want to say Austin actually wanted me to check this out. We were going to do it on actually movie versus movie, and then we ended up changing up our idea. But yeah, so The Battery, finally checked it out, and the plot with this one is you have these 2 characters. They're former baseball players, and they kind of have like clashing personalities. They weren't necessarily like best friends or anything like that. They literally just played baseball together, and this sort of plague of sorts breaks out in their area, and they are pretty much left on their own, and they're kind of drifting through town to town with no really purpose or direction other than to stay away from these undead people that keep coming back. And the one dude's like all about sort of, killing off these zombie type people whenever they come around, and the other guy just isn't for it. He kind of just wants to avoid them and keep to himself, and the whole movie he's kind of listening to these CD player, and he has his big headphones on throughout the majority of it, listening to music, which you do get to hear the music that's playing, and that's kind of like his escape from the world. So the two of them kind of clash, because one's really just wants to get in there and kick some butts and more of a fighter type of guy, and the other one just wants to run away from the situation. So yeah, that's kind of the story there. Pretty basic story, really. Zombie film, if you will. Like JP said, it's directed by Jeremy Gardner, written by Jeremy Gardner, and starring Jeremy Gardner, which is pretty impressive. I can't even imagine doing all of that. It just seems like it would be quite difficult. This movie, there's not a whole lot to it. It's mainly just following these two characters and getting to know them, which I think they do really well. They do the clashing personalities pretty well. It seems like it would get super annoying and hectic being around somebody that you weren't necessarily best friends with to begin with, and then to top it off, you guys just have certain wavelengths and you don't really agree on certain things, and there's a lot of moments in the movie where they're kind of just arguing and getting on each other's nerves, and to me that's just anxiety inducing to add to the already big issue that you have where the world is pretty much falling apart. So I like that aspect. The settings are really nice to look at. It's obvious that they're you didn't really need a ton of money to make this movie, because it's like two guys traveling the whole film by car, and then of course they happen upon some shelter, and which is the one character's ex-girlfriend's house. They go to her house and she's nowhere to be found. Then they end up taking all her stuff, her like pillows and whatnot, and putting them in the back of their car to sleep in. And then the ending, the final, I guess, act you can say of the film is pretty well done as well, in my opinion. It's very anxiety inducing, as I said, where they're kind of stuck in this car, and it seems like days are going by, and yeah, the ending is actually pretty depressing as well. I don't have a ton to say about this movie because it is a pretty basic plot line. I do think it's a good movie. I think the acting is really well done, and I think they did a good job with what they had. Would I ever want to really watch this movie again? Honestly, probably not. Just didn't do a ton for me. I'm not super into the zombie aspect of movies, but I will say this one's more of, in a way, a character study of these two, and you get to know their personalities really well. It's well written for that dynamic, and I like the music as well. It's all kind of just this music you never heard of, like indie type of music he's kind of listening to the entire film. So I enjoy that about it as well. So overall, I did like it. It's not something I would really run back to, but I think it's very solid for what it is, and I did actually give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, there was just so much things that I liked about that movie. I'm a sucker for zombie films that actually develop and create a movie about the characters and not necessarily about the zombie apocalypse. It's just one that really sticks out to me as one of the best zombie films I've ever seen. So I understand the acting is a little bit shaky, not from Gardner, he's fantastic, but the other actor, and you could tell too because he'd only done like 3 films total, and one of them that's like definitely the most acting he's done was in The Battery. But okay, so a couple of years later, we have a film that I watched, which I actually hadn't seen before, but I was familiar with it. We kind of covered the story of it on 22 Shots back in 2015. It was a film Gardner made, and it's called Tex Montana Will Survive. The reason this film is like kind of note is that it was produced and finished through Kickstarter, and it was released completely free. So you basically, I'm pretty sure it's public domain. So anybody can download it, rip it, burn their copies, sell their copies. I think that nobody's gonna really buy copies of this, but because it's free. But you know what I mean. I think that anybody can watch it. Like, it's on YouTube. It literally says in the description, fair use, copy, burn, distribute. So that's pretty cool. And it's a film that follows Jeremy Gardner's character, Tex Montana, and he is a sort of Survivor Man, Bear Grylls type of character from Man vs. Wild, of course. Survivor Man is Les Stroud, the much better survivalist, and it's very similar to that. He's somebody who, honestly, it's funny because he's almost like very Bear Grylls like, but with this like accent, but he's doing like ridiculous things that you wouldn't need to do in survival situations. And he has his own TV show called Tex Montana Will Survive, and basically the show gets canceled because a lot of people think that it's fake. So in order to prove himself real, he decides that he's going to go out to the wilderness and survive for 30 days with no camera crew and just a lone knife and GPS and a backpack full of camera gear. And he actually smashes his GPS on camera to prove a point. And he, is a goof. He's a complete buffoon. He's horrible at surviving. He has like no survival skills at all. He's a fake. And throughout the film, you were seeing all this footage of him like filming himself. Like he's walking up a mountain and he like turns around. He's walking down, or he's like walking up, turns around, walks down, and then starts walking back up. And he's like, that's the last damn establishing shot I ever do. That better be good enough. Walking up a damn mountain twice. What kind of stuff is this? And it's really funny because I always thought that was Survivor Man, like, because he has to leave the camera there, walk away, then he has to walk back and get the camera because he's shooting all his own stuff. And he makes a funny thing out of that. And then he talks to this girl, like he talks to the camera a lot, but he's talking to this girl named Amanda, who apparently is his editor. And when he does something stupid on camera, he's like, Amanda, you better not show that. I'm telling you, I will fire you. and like he'll fall and he'll be like, or like he'll mess up his shelter. And he's like, I swear to God, Amanda, you not put this in the film. It's like, it's super funny because he brings it up like so many times. He's like, I'm telling you now, Amanda, this better not end up in the footage. He's like, I will fire you. You won't have a job. He's like, I will kill you. And he like freaks out and it gets real funny. And he just keeps getting more and more over his head. Like he actually passes the 30 days, but he's lost. So he's like 32 days, 35 days, 37 days, 40 days, 45 days, 50 days. Like, and it keeps going, and it's really, really funny. It's a one-man show. Jeremy Gardner and static camera shots of him being a character, just saying funny stuff, doing funny things. I laughed out loud many times watching this film, like true laughs, true legitimate laughs. And I just thought that it was such a fun experience. More people need to see this. It only has like 40,000 or 400,000 views on YouTube, which I think is like very low for a free film that's actually good. So everybody should check it out. It's not a horror film, but it is a very good comedy. So that is Tex Montana Will Survive, and the ending is amazing. I'll just put it at that. So that is Tex Montana Will Survive from 2015. I give it a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I actually kind of want to watch it. I wanted to watch it. You kind of told me about it beforehand, and it made me really want to check it out because I like to laugh.
Yeah.
You and I kind of have different humor sometimes, though, so I don't know if it would.
Yeah,
I
but
hope I would
this
find it
this
funny.
one kind of like,
It's for all people.
yeah, because it's like very. It's like that very funny humor where it's like just a character being ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like he's just funny. Like
Yeah.
he's funny. Like his actions are funny. His like voice is funny. His the stuff the like scenarios and stuff that he says is funny. But yeah, so moving along here, we have Jeremy Gardner's third feature film, and this one is one that I was very excited for. It's actually a film that was in my top 5 most anticipated films of 2020 when we recorded 22 shots and we did a preview of 2020. This was in my top 5 most anticipated, and that is After Midnight from the year 2020 or 2019, depending on if you saw it at the festival circuit or not. Carly, what is After Midnight about?
All right. So I'll just read the good old description here. When his long-suffering girlfriend disappears suddenly, leaving a cryptic note as her only explanation, Hank's comfortable life and his sanity begin to crack. Then, from the woods surrounding his house, something terrible starts trying to break in. It's a pretty decent description, I would say.
Seems about right.
Yeah.
All right, so what did you think of After Midnight?
This one I thought was weird. That's the best way to describe it. To me, it is a horror drama. It feels like he was for sure trying to lean more on the drama side. Like maybe he just really wanted to make a drama film, and some of the stuff in it feels like it should be metaphorical, but at the same time it's like kind of real. So I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it really. It was an okay movie. It was just weirdly designed. Like I'm watching it and I'm kind of thinking like, okay, what's going on here? What's going to happen? And just some of the ways that things play out are oddly done, in my opinion. With the characters and what they do. I was watching it, I was kind of tired, and I was actually falling asleep watching it, and then you had actually called me that night, and it woke me up again, and I was able to get back into it a little bit. But honestly, I would like to say I was just tired that night, which I was, but I feel like I was kind of falling asleep to the movie because I just wasn't super interested in it based on the first half. I don't know, just the acting in it, I think, Jeremy Gardner, he does a really good job. The girlfriend character, I don't know, just some of the dialogue and stuff like that is a little bit odd in the movie, and just what's going on, I'm not quite sure if I get everything that he was trying to put out, and it's kind of a weird one. What did you think of it?
I absolutely loved it.
Oh.
Yeah. I think that the relationship is amazing. You have this couple who... What? You sound confused.
Yeah, I think you're being... I think I got set up.
Set up?
Yes.
No, okay. Let me reel it back. I didn't love it. I was actually a little disappointed in it. I do think I liked it more than you.
Yeah, I would say you probably did.
But I think that the problem that I have with it mostly is it just feels like not enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the film is beautifully shot. There are some great one takes in this film. Specifically the scene that is a very long dialogue scene of the Jeremy Gardner character and his girlfriend. And it starts out really far, and it slowly zooms in as the conversation goes on. There's a great shot of him driving his truck where it feels very personal, which I do like. And I think that, I think that where the film misses me a little bit, as I just don't think that the relationship is conveyed on screen in a way that makes me interested.
Yeah, I would agree. Kind of like I said, I feel like his main intention with this movie was he wanted to try out a drama, and like horror was almost secondary in the film. You do get horror throughout it, kind of with, like I said, the plot is kind of he thinks there's something in his woods that's coming to attack his house every night, so you do get that aspect to it, but it's mainly supposed to be about this suffering relationship that he's in, and it just doesn't really go anywhere. It's like a small town setting. You have a few other characters, and it's like they're friends from the town, and yeah, her brother, and I'm just not overly interested in them either. And then I kind of told you, like, there's like this final scene's kind of supposed to be touching, I guess, in a way, but I actually thought it went on for a little bit too long, and it was almost getting awkward to watch. And to me, it just feels like something you would see. I've seen this type of stuff play out in other drama films, and it wasn't overly original, and there wasn't enough there, really. It's really just centered around this house, and supposed to be about him kind of being depressed that his woman has gone missing, or, you know, didn't go missing really, but kind of ran off, and he doesn't know where she is, and she's not talking to him. And then, you know, later on, different stuff happens, and that's kind of it's kind of how The Battery is, where there's not much to it, but I feel like The Battery obviously was the characters were just more interesting in that movie, to where you could make it a solid film, and it was more horror, so I enjoyed it a little bit better. So yeah, that's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of just how I feel about this movie. I'm very lukewarm on it. I didn't think it was anything special.
I think that the extent of most of the film is like I don't even know if this is true, but in my head it feels like there's a lot of scenes of them, like, without dialogue, like smiling and looking at each other and like laughing and like you know, that type of thing. It almost feels like a commercial or something.
Yeah.
But it's just that I don't think that, like, I'm okay with the core concept of the film. I'm okay with the love aspect of the film. I'm not saying that I wouldn't want a drama or a romance with a little bit of horror mixed in. That's okay. I like films that don't have a ton of horror, and, you know, maybe it just has horror at the end or something. But I just feel like that the dialogue and the actual relationship aspect, which is such a huge part of the film, didn't really connect with me. I think that Gardner's much better at writing. I know he is. I see his dialogue in Tex Montana and The Battery is both a lot better than this film. I think that there just wasn't, like, the conversations that they do have, I just don't think were interesting enough. There's not enough of them. It's just honestly, to me, the most entertaining part of the film was the conversation at the bar regarding the gross drink out of the bar mat.
Yeah.
I thought that was, like, the most interesting, like, funny little dialogue thing that was in the film. But overall, I didn't connect with the storytelling in this one. I did really like the setting. I really liked the concept of the movie in terms of, like, this love story of heartbreak mixed in with a monster. I also feel like the monster thing wasn't handled that well, where it was almost like the characters, it should have been a bigger deal. Like, like, there's supposed to be this almost like, well, is there a monster? Isn't there a monster? Is this all in his head? Like, his friends are judging him. I feel like that was very set. Even that, like, the monster was secondary, but that paranoia of the monster and the judgment of the friends was even also secondary. So I just felt like this film missed for me. I don't necessarily think it's a bad film at all. I think it's a cool indie movie, and honestly, like, it's better than a lot of people can do on, I guarantee, what was a super small budget. There is a creative thing here, but what this feels like is a wildly successful, call it, final film school film. Like, I could see this being like a runaway success if somebody fresh out of film school made this movie, and, you know, I can see that the quality being around that era for somebody who's really talented. You know what I mean? Like a very talented filmmaker out of film school. This is kind of what that film feels like to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But overall, I mean, I think that it just missed the mark for me. Not by a ton. It did just a little bit. And I really like Jeremy Gardner. I still think that even watching this film, like, this guy definitely has talent. I just think that the talent wasn't directed in the way that I was hoping for or the way that connected with me.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. And, I don't think the writing's necessarily bad or anything. It's just kind of cookie cutter in a way. I think it's more so just the way the scenes play out and are pasted together that it's just not overly interesting enough for my liking.
One of the things I did like was where they found the mixtape that he made for another girl in the tape, and he was talking about, no, it's the same song on the whole tape, like, so you don't have to rewind and stuff. I thought that was charming and nice and cute and like a nice little conversation. I would have loved to see more stuff like that. Didn't get a whole lot of that.
Yep. Yeah, not a bad movie. It at least kind of kept my interest to where I'm like, what's going on in this movie? It's one of those just has a weird vibe to it, so I do give it that, but not really what I was expecting or wanting. So that's pretty much all I really have to say on it.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into ratings here. I will go first, and you might be surprised, but I'm coming in a little low on this one. Again, I would consider this another miss for me for the year. Like, when I say miss, I'm talking about films with list potential. So now 0 for 5 for the year, but as they do say, it is
dump month.
So I'm coming in at I'm a little higher than a couple of the films that we watched, but I'm lower than the best one that we watched, and that is at a 6.5 out of 10.
All right, yeah, I think that's a pretty fair rating. I actually did rate it half a point higher. I gave it a 7 out of 10, and that's mainly based on, I don't think it's horribly shot. I think the writing's okay, and the acting was good. I mean, Jeremy Gardner's good, and I think the girl's good too. I just think some of the dialogue's a little bit weird, but so yeah, 7 out of 10. Like you said, not list worthy. Just looking at my list so far of the few movies we've seen for 2020, I wouldn't even, if I was asked to do a top 10 show right now, and that's like all the movies I was handed, I wouldn't even participate because it would just feel fake, because none of them seem worthy of being on a list. But so pretty rough start to the year, but this movie wasn't horrible. Just nothing spectacular has come out yet.
All right. So that wraps up this episode of His and Hers Movie Podcast. Next week, we will be recapping our Valentine's Day movie watch double feature with plenty of stack and other food. And we will also be covering the newly released at the time Fantasy Island, I believe. Or is it The Lodge? No, The Lodge is the week after, I believe. So we do have tickets to see The Lodge too, so that might be an episode. But then we also have The Boy 2 coming out, Invisible Man coming out. There's tons of stuff coming out. We wanted to get to Joe Begos' new film, VFW, but I don't think we're going to because of just the theatrical, because that comes priority releases. We have 4 theatrical releases before the wrap up of this month, and we're already halfway through the month, I believe, so that's pretty crazy. But yeah, so that is the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. We love your feedback and comments, so please keep doing that for us. And with that said, I am JP.
And I'm Carly.
And we will see you next time. Peace out.
Peace.